All right, welcome back to the channel. My name is Big John, and we're going to continue application of what we discussed, like with the Tueler drill. So now we have two targets, and I hope it's visible. Please excuse my artistic ability, but this target has a knife. That target has a handgun. They're roughly 3 meters apart, give or take a little bit. We're going to discuss today in a later video multiple targets, how you engage them. But specifically this time, well, we're still doing multiple targets and how you engage them. So we're roughly 3 meters apart. The target with the knife is approximately 4 meters in front of the person or the target with a handgun. So if you shoot, for instance, IDPA, International Defensive Pistol Association, which I highly recommend. They shoot carry gear. They don't have race guns like IPSA. It's more, quote unquote, real world. But they have an idea called tactical sequence. And so the idea is you shoot the greatest threat first. Now, one thing I will disagree with them just slightly. And it's been a long time since I've done it. With my work schedule, it's very difficult for me to do it. But used to on the rules was, if this was the first target you engaged this target with one round before you engage that target at all. And you could not engage this target with multiple rounds till you engage both targets. So it would be similar to 1 round, 2 rounds, 1 round. Now, the reason again, with the Tueler drill, the reason we would be looking at this target as the greater threat is from the camera. He's roughly 4 to 5 meters from the camera. That's well within the 21 feet, the Tueler rule, or the Tueler drill. And he does have a weapon. Now, this individual back here is further back. He has a weapon that ideally is more effective. It's more effective at distance, but this would be the greater threat. So the way we would engage it, and I'm going to come around on the other side, and we're not looking too much at movements yet, although that is something we're going to discuss. Is rather than 1 round, 2 rounds, 1 round, what I would be looking at is 1 round or multiple rounds to this. Well, let me back up. I'm going to engage this guy first because I've determined he's my greatest threat. He has a lethal weapon, and he's closer than that gentleman back there. And I'm using the term gentleman loosely. So I'm going to engage this threat till he is no longer a threat, or no longer a greater threat than this target with the gun, if that makes sense. So I'll engage this target, but in my mind, and this is why we have to be subconscious competent, is I'm looking at what results my fire has. If I can knock him out as a threat in 1 round, oh, that's wonderful. If I can knock him out as a threat with not even firing my handgun, that's even better. If I come out and he drops the knife, I'm tickled to death. And I'll engage this rascal back here. But what I'm doing is, subconsciously, I'm running my gun. Subconsciously, I'm watching the sights, trigger press, stance, grip, everything we've talked about, so that I can use part of my brain to keep track of, all right, who's the bigger threat, if that's clear as mud. So now everything's going to be dry fire. So I'm going to clear my weapon. Now, the other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add in some movement. Now, one thing we have done so far is, we get in our good stance. Our support foot is slightly ahead of our firing foot, shoulder width apart, knees bent, nose over toes, and we're engaging. But what we're going to do now is, and I'm going to get Virginia to kind of scoot around with the camera and scoot back just a little bit probably. What I'm going to do is add a little bit of movement. And I really want to show you something in just a minute when we do this part. One thing we're also looking at and I hope I'm not adding too much at one time to one video. But when you're going between multiple targets, okay, I'm watching my front sight, I've engaged, I determine he is no longer a threat, or he is not the greatest threat. This gentleman over here is the greatest threat. So rather than me taking my eyes, my pistol, and my head and shifting over, what I'm going to do is I'm going to look with my head and my eyes and bring my sights to it, to my eyes, if that's clear as mud. That will actually be faster. You will not have the tendency to go too far, go past. So what it would be something along, and I'm not going to try to go real fast, but what I'm going to be doing is coming up, moving, engaging. Okay, I'm going to say, just for argument's sake, that he's no longer a threat. I move and I'm doing this in an exaggerated manner, but I'm looking at my other target, and I'm going to reset my trigger. So I look to my next target, my next threat, I come with a pistol, and I engage. And that's how we would do it. So the idea is we're using movement to get off the X. And you say, well, what does that matter? And if the camera will stay right there, the reason I'm saying this is, and this is exaggerated, and I can't see the screen, so I hope I get far enough out of the way. But at close range, if I take a step, I don't know if I got out of the camera view entirely. Okay. Do I get anywhere close? Edge. Okay. Well, but that's the concept. If we take a big step and come across, the other thing we're looking at is the OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, and act. He's already on act. So me moving, and I'm not going to draw because even with an unloaded weapon, I'm going to be pointing it at my cameraman, which is my one and only, my most favorite daughter, and her mother would kill me. But if I come across and start the draw stroke, he has to observe that I moved, that I'm engaging, orient to that fact, decide what he's going to do and act. And hopefully I've got inside his OODA loop, and I'm going to stay inside of his OODA loop, if that's clear as mud. So what we need to think about is movement. We need to think about, so we're getting off the X. Now, the ways we can move. Of course, we could go forward. Doesn't change anything. I'm still in the line of fire. Now, if Virginia will come here just a second, on this side of the camera, I'm going to use her for a crash test dummy. Stand right here in front of me, or right here. Now, you're facing me. Right here. Okay. She doesn't see the threat back there, but I do. So me and her, we're talking, Daddy, can I go to the store with my friends? So I may need to step forward, get her out of the way, and engage the threat. That would be one reason I would be moving forward. And I got my shirt tail in the way. I'm not a big fan of moving back at all because I'm still in the line of fire. So if I take 3 steps back, what have I gained? If rounds are coming down range, 1/100 of a second of my life, what I need to do is if I can, move in a lateral fashion. So I may go this direction. I may go this direction. Okay? But what I'm doing is I'm making him have to adjust to me, if that's clear as mud. Now, here we have 2 targets. Now, I just kind of squared up on them. And so I'm engaging this target first, and I moved off the X. So he has to address. Then I come over to engage this threat. But if she'll bring the camera, and it would take me a minute. But let's say I could get to right here, and if you'll put the camera behind me, and I'm going to get off to the side. But if you can see on the camera, what I've done now is I've taken one threat out of the picture, unless he is sure enough a bad dude and he don't care about hitting his buddy, because he can't engage me because he'll have to shoot through his buddy with a knife. So if we were looking at it from a military standpoint, we just celebrated the 161st anniversary of the Battle of Chancellorsville, where Stonewall Jackson, in my humble opinion, the best infantry officer the Confederacy had that classic maneuver where he flanked O.O. Howard. So what he did was, rather than taking O.O. Howard on head on, he came to this side, flanked him, and rolled him up so he could take him piecemeal. And we've done the exact same thing. So rather than squaring up where both of them can shoot at me at the same time, if I can move, and hopefully I won't have to move this far, but if I can move and I have clear fields of fire in front and behind where I can engage, I can almost engage them one at a time. So instead of 2 to 1, it's 1 to 1, then 1 to 1 again, if that makes sense. So I hope I haven't confused you thoroughly, but that's kind of what I wanted to talk about as far as movement. Now, the other thing we would look at is movement to cover or concealment. Now, this is concealment. I can't see you. It does not stop rounds. Cover, however, will stop rounds, which it is dependent on what you're getting shot at with. If it's an airsoft gun, that's one thing. What may be cover for that is not the same as if he's got a 50 caliber BMG, a Browning machine gun, mild deuce shooting at you. Then it's concealment, it ain't cover. And then if he drops a thermonuclear warhead on your head, well, what was cover for the 50 BMG is now concealment as well. But the idea is this is why we have to get our handling of the firearm itself to a subconscious level where we can use our conscious mind to work on problems like this. Where's my threat? What's the biggest threat or the greatest threat if I have multiple threats? Can I move in a manner where I can neutralize a threat just by putting somebody between me and it, or putting an obstacle? For instance, if this gentleman here, back to the Tueler drill, he's got a blade, he's got a knife. All right, we're within 21 feet, 7 meters or 7 yards. Let's say that he tried out for the NFL and didn't make it. Well, there's no way I'm going backwards faster than he's going forwards. But if I could get the car between me and him because he has an impact weapon, that would be the same. Again, if rather than backing up, what if I actually went forward in a more lateral movement, because then again he has to address my movement, and then hopefully I get inside of his OODA loop and I can get good hits before he can get me. Okay, well, that's all I got this time. Like I say, I hope I haven't confused you. I've confused myself, honestly, because I covered so much at one time. But, always as normal, comments, questions, criticisms, witticisms, you let me know. If I can do anything to help you, you let me know. And I appreciate it. And we'll see you on the next video.